if every fight includes, then let's break up, the real question is not only whether they love you, it is whether the relationship is still safe enough to disagree inside.
This is AI Dialogue Lab. Before a breakup threat becomes the fight, pause and read the repair signal.
Welcome to today's deep dive. You might be dealing with a partner who constantly threatens to walk out the door the second an argument gets heated.
Right. Or, let's be honest, maybe you are the one pulling that ripcord.
Yeah, exactly. And today we're pulling from a massive stack of sources. We've got clinical therapy guidelines, relationship psychology from the Gottman Institute, and empathy, and some incredibly raw, real-world confessions from people living this cycle.
Because our mission today is to answer a really critical question. Like, when someone threatens to break up during every single fight, do they really want to leave?
Right. And to get to the bottom of what is actually happening in these high-stakes arguments, I feel like the first step is separating what is being said from what's, actually being decided.
Yes. There is a massive fundamental difference between a breakup threat and a true breakup decision.
Which is so confusing when you're on the receiving end, right? Because the words coming out of their mouth are literally, it's over.
It feels incredibly definitive in the moment. Of course it does. But a genuine decision to end a relationship, one rooted in clarity and finality, that belongs in a calm, separate conversation.
Yeah.
It usually happens when the nervous system is settled. A threat screamed at the absolute peak of a screaming match is almost always something else entirely.
Right.
It's a symptom of distress, not a final verdict on the partnership.
I was reading through the real-world experiences in our sources, and there is this really poignant confession from a Reddit user that illustrates this perfectly, I think.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, they admitted that they frequently shout, "I hate this relationship and don't want it anymore." But they followed that up by explicitly stating they don't actually mean it. They do it because in the heat of the moment, they feel totally unheard, powerless, and just desperate for their partner to validate their pain.
And that feeling of powerlessness, that is the engine driving the behavior.
Yeah.
They aren't strategizing a clean break. They are grasping for a lifeline. The tragedy is that they're trying to force their partner to listen by using the most extreme language available to them.
Which my initial thought reading that was, well, if your goal is to be heard and pull your partner closer, why use the one phrase guaranteed to shut down the conversation?
It's a huge paradox.
It really is. It's like pulling a fire alarm because you're cold and you just want someone to bring you a blanket.
That is a great way to put it.
Right. Sure, it gets everyone's attention immediately, but it causes total chaos. And, no one is thinking about getting you a blanket anymore.
Right. They're just trying to evacuate the building.
Exactly. So why choose words that mean the exact opposite of what you actually want?
Well, to make sense of that contradiction, we really have to stop looking at the content of the fight, like who forgot to run the dishwasher or who spent too much money.
Yeah, the surface stuff.
Exactly. And look directly under the hood at human biology. We have to look at the nervous system.
Okay.
Clinically, there is this concept called the window of tolerance. Picture it as your optimal emotional zone.
Right.
When you are inside this window, you can handle stress, you can hear criticism without crumbling, you can formulate a logical response.
So basically, inside the window, you act like a rational adult.
Yes, you have access to your full brain. But as an argument escalates, voices raise, tones get harsh, old wounds get poked, your nervous system starts taking on water.
Yeah.
The conflict exceeds your capacity to cope, and you are pushed forcefully outside that window of tolerance into a state of hyperarousal.
Meaning the rational part of the brain just packs up and leaves.
Completely offline. The amygdala, which is your brain's threat detector, it just sounds a massive alarm. From a biological standpoint, the argument over the credit card bill is no longer a conversation. It is a life or death survival situation.
That is so wild to think about.
It is. You are instantly thrown into fight, freeze, or flee mode. So saying I'm leaving or let's just break up is in many cases a verbal flight response.
A verbal flight response. I hadn't actually considered that.
No.
So the brain is processing a relationship conflict the exact same way it processes a physical danger, like being chased by a predator.
Yeah, which sounds extreme until you look at the physiological data. Social rejection, or even just the perceived threat of abandonment, It literally lights up the exact same neural pathways and pain centers in the brain as a physical injury.
Wait, really? The same pain centers?
The exact same ones.
Mm-hmm.
The brain doesn't distinguish between a broken bone and a breaking bond.
Oh, wow.
So the person shouting, "let's break up," could just be in a state of sheer panic. They might be trying to verbally escape the overwhelming physical sensation of the argument. Or they might be testing to see if their partner will chase them just to prove they are still loved.
You know, when you break down the mechanics like that, this is basically an adult version of a baby crying in a crib.
That's exactly what it is.
It isn't always calculated manipulation. It is like 200 million years of mammalian biology demanding that the partner, the attachment figure, restore the bond and make the environment safe again.
It is pure attachment science in action. The nervous system is constantly scanning the environment, asking, "Are you there for me?"
Right.
And when the answer feels like a no during a bitter argument, the biological alarm bells ring. The protester escalates to force a connection.
But, you know, knowing this is rooted in biological panic, it doesn't automatically fix the situation.
Not at all.
Because reading through these sources, the collateral damage of this behavior is absolutely massive.
Yeah.
Just because the intent is survival doesn't mean the impact isn't totally devastating.
The impact is where relationships go to die, to be honest. These empty threats, repeated over time, they destroy the foundational floorboards of the partnership. When one person pulls the "let's break up" card every time things get tough, the threatened partner quickly learns a very dangerous lesson.
Which is what?
That disagreement, expressing needs, or just basic honesty might cost them everything.
So they just stop bringing up problems entirely. They swallow their feelings because the penalty for being honest is just too high.
Exactly. The environment becomes a minefield. Emotional safety is completely eroded. And you just cannot have true intimacy without emotional safety.
There's a really powerful analogy from the Tango source that stuck with me on this exact point.
Oh, the gun analogy.
Yes. They say threatening a breakup during a fight is like firing a gun inside your house. Even if the bullet doesn't hit anyone, it is loud, it is terrifying, and the house never feels safe again.
Yeah, that is a haunting visual.
It really is.
Yeah.
Everyone living there knows you're willing to pull the trigger, and they're constantly waiting for the next loud noise.
And if we follow the trajectory of that fear, you see the tragic irony of this entire dynamic. Let's go back to that Reddit thread for a second.
Okay.
Another user responded to the original poster we mentioned earlier. This second person was the partner on the receiving end of those constant panicked threats.
Right, the one being threatened.
Yeah, and they shared that over time, the constant anxiety caused them to become emotionally distant and cold-hearted. They stopped trusting their partner entirely and just withdrew into themselves for self-protection.
Wow. So the threat, which was unconsciously designed by the panicked partner to force closeness and get reassurance,
Exactly.
actually guarantees permanent distance.
It creates a brutal, self-fulfilling prophecy. The panicked partner escalates to get connection. That escalation terrifies the receiving partner, who withdraws to protect themselves.
And then that withdrawal triggers even more panic in the first partner.
Right, causing them to threaten a breakup louder and more frequently. It's a toxic loop that just leaves the emotional safety of the house in ruins.
Okay, so if you are caught in that loop right now, and these threats are actively destroying your house, how do you disarm them?
Well, you obviously can't just look at someone who is trapped in an amygdala hijack and tell them to calm down.
Oh, no. That has historically never worked for anyone, ever.
Telling a dysregulated nervous system to calm down is basically like throwing gasoline on a fire.
Right.
What couples need instead is a repair agreement. This is a pre-established rule for the nervous system, and the key here is that it must be agreed upon when both people are perfectly calm and regulated.
So we are talking about bringing this up on a random Tuesday afternoon when you're making coffee, not at 2 in the morning when you're crying in the kitchen.
Exactly. The core rule of the agreement is non-negotiable. No breakup threats during active fights. If the argument gets heated, the threats are off the table.
Okay.
To enforce this, couples must implement a mandatory pause phrase. When either partner feels themselves getting flooded, when the heart rate spikes, the chest tightens, and that urge to flee or attack kicks, they deploy the phrase.
I am curious about the science behind this pause, because the Gottman Institute research in our sources is very specific about the timing.
Yes, very specific.
They state this break needs to be at least 20 to 30 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
Why that specific window? I mean, why not 5 minutes to just catch your breath?
Because 5 minutes isn't enough time for your organs to do their job.
Really?
Yeah. When you go into fight or flight, your adrenal glands dump a massive amount of stress hormones into your bloodstream, specifically adrenaline and norepinephrine.
Right.
These chemicals are designed to keep you alive against a predator. They keep your heart rate elevated and your muscles tense. Your body does not have a fast-acting enzyme in the blood to instantly neutralize norepinephrine. It has to be physically filtered out of your system.
Wow. So you literally just have to wait for the body to flush the chemicals out.
You do. That physiological process takes a minimum of 20 minutes, sometimes more.
That is fascinating.
And until that happens, your heart rate often stays above 100 beats per minute, which research shows renders you physically incapable of processing complex language, problem solving, or feeling empathy.
It's like hitting a save game checkpoint in a difficult video game.
Yeah, I love that comparison.
You aren't turning off the console or rage quitting the relationship. You are just pausing the action so you don't lose all your progress while the system cools down.
Exactly.
But what are you supposed to do during those 20 or 30 minutes? Because if I go sit in the other room and just replay the fight in my head, I'm going to come back angrier than when I left.
Rumination is the enemy of the pause. If you sit there rehearsing your next devastating comeback or dwelling on how unfair your partner is being, your brain still thinks the threat is active.
So the hormones keep flowing.
Right. It will keep pumping those stress hormones. During the break, you must actively self-soothe and genuinely distract yourself.
Yeah.
Listen to a podcast, read a magazine, fold laundry, take a walk around the block. You have to physically bring your heart rate down.
Okay, so if someone listening to this right now is thinking, I need to try this tonight, what exactly should they say? Can we walk through the specific script for this repair agreement?
Yes, the formula has a few critical components. First, use a pause phrase that names your physical need, not the relationship's end.
Okay, so like what?
Something like, I am feeling flooded right now. I need a pause, not an ending.
A pause, not an ending. That is so clear.
Second, you must name a specific return time. Let's come back and talk about this at 8:30.
Why is the exact time so important?
This is crucial because walking away without a return time feels like abandonment to the other person, which will just trigger their panic all over again.
That makes a lot of sense.
Third, offer brief reassurance. I am really upset, but I am still here and I still love you.
Offering reassurance when you are furious sounds incredibly difficult, I have to say. But I see how it acts as an anchor for the other person's nervous system.
It really does. It signals safety. And the final, vital step of the repair agreement is the mutual understanding that true breakup decisions will only ever be discussed when both people are calm and regulated.
Right.
If you actually want to leave the relationship, you do it on a peaceful afternoon, not in the middle of a screaming match.
I hear the logic of the repair agreement, but I have to push back here for a second. We have to address the darker side of this dynamic.
Let's do it.
If my partner is screaming that they are leaving, and my own heart rate is pushing 120, I am not going to calmly recite a script. I am going to panic.
Right. It's really hard in practice.
What happens when the pause phrase doesn't work? What happens when you try to set this boundary on a Tuesday afternoon, and by Friday night, they are threatening to leave again?
This is where we have to transition from talking about nervous system quirks to identifying serious red flags and boundaries.
Yeah, because at some point, it's not just a quirk.
Exactly. While the original intent behind a breakup threat might be rooted in biological panic, the continuous use of it, especially after a clear boundary has been requested, crosses a line. It moves from a cry for connection into a mechanism of control.
But the line between my partner is dysregulated and needs 20 minutes, and my partner is using emotional blackmail to keep me in line feels really blurry when you are in the thick of it. Like, how do you actually distinguish between the two?
You look for compliance and chronic fear. Are they using the threat of a breakup to force you to back down from your perfectly reasonable needs? Are you surrendering your autonomy just to keep the peace? If you find yourself walking on eggshells, constantly apologizing when you haven't done anything wrong, or hiding your true feelings because you were terrified they will pull the trigger on the relationship, the environment is no longer safe.
At that point, it ceases to be a partnership. It starts to feel like a hostage situation where you were just trading your honesty for their presence.
And in those situations, the relationship requires firm, non-negotiable boundaries and very often professional support to navigate safely.
Yeah.
We are unpacking the clinical psychology of these arguments, but if a threat is being used as a weapon of intimidation to punish you for speaking your mind, that is a depth safety issue.
Absolute.
A panicked partner who wants a healthy relationship will engage with the repair agreement because they want to stop hurting you. A controlling partner will resist the agreement because it takes away their ultimate leverage.
That is the ultimate litmus test right there. You introduce the concept of the pause and the repair agreement. If they are willing to try it, even if they stumble, there is hope.
Yes.
But if they refuse to give up the weapon, well, you have your answer about what the relationship really is.
It completely reveals the true dynamic at play. Understanding the underlying biology of our reactions gives us a roadmap, but it also highlights where biology ends and behavior takes over.
This has been such an incredibly eye-opening journey. We've moved from the chaotic surface of these explosive fights down into the adrenaline and biology of our nervous systems, and finally to a highly practical toolkit for keeping the relationship safe when things get really hard.
It's heavy stuff, but it's so necessary.
It really is. Before we sign off, I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder on your own. We've talked so much about the primal fear of losing a relationship and the panic that fear causes. But what if the most profound way to prove your love to someone isn't by fighting for the relationship's existence every single time you clash, but by fighting fairly within it?
Yeah.
Imagine knowing the foundation is secure enough to hold your anger, your frustration, and your disagreements without the whole house collapsing.
That security is the ultimate goal of emotional safety. It is the freedom to just be human with each other.
Here are the key takeaways from today's deep dive.
1. A breakup threat is not always a breakup decision, but it still damages safety.
2. What conflict needs is a pause and a return time, not the relationship held hostage.
3. A relationship can survive disagreement, but it cannot stay healthy if every disagreement becomes an existence crisis.
If you like AI Dialogue Lab, like, subscribe, share, and turn on notifications.